Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Dokkan battle video, and today I want to do a little team building guide on the new Broly. And I am recording this before he drops, but for the most part this will be based on what we know what will be available like right as he drops or very soon after he drops. But I will talk about other options you can do based on things that I think might happen during the celebration, right? So we'll go ahead and hop into it, and I'm just going to show you what I think one of his best teams will be, and kind of the combination of units that are going to make his best team once the celebration gets rolling for him as the leader. And after reading Broly, you're gonna want to run him as the leader. He's gonna be crazy, right? So a couple of disclaimers is in this team build, some things you can substitute in is obviously whatever the part 2 extreme LR is will probably fit on his team. And then also any other EZAs that we don't know about yet, which we know there will be more, and I'll talk about some of those options coming up. But I would say, like, you know, as I'm recording this video, Broly literally drops in like 5 hours after this video releases, right? So you guys are going to start pulling right away. So I want you guys to know what are some fun teams you can run with him as the leader, right? So I'm actually going to talk about one specific team, but then talk about other units you might use and swap in. So obviously Broly isn't out yet, so I'm just using this guy as the placeholder because it's a base Broly, right? So obviously you run him as the lead, and he's 200% movie boss. Now movie boss initially isn't that crazy, but we're going to have some crazy support coming for this team, right? So the one thing that was announced is this guy is going to EZA, so plan on this guy being a mainstay on the team. I think the wombo combo of this guy and the new Broly is going to be absolutely insane, because this guy's already a stacking defense damage reduction unit, and that other Broly is like a slot 1 god. And so the way I envision this working is you put the new Broly in slot 1, not transformed. You leave him 1 turn not transformed because he has insane damage reduction. You can put him in slot 1 to protect this guy, because this is a guy I think you typically are going to want to attack first. And I'm going to assume after his EZA is going to work the same way. But what's going to happen is by putting the new Broly in slot 1, this guy's going to be in slot 2. He's going to get free stacking right away without having to worry about dealing with slot 1. And then after this guy stacks up a little bit, then you can transform the other Broly, and then it should work out really nice. So, and they're going to be like darn near perfect linking partners. They won't be perfect because this guy's not an LR, but they'll probably be 6 out of 7. Well, I should say probably 5 out of 7 most of the time, because they're going to share Berserker, which you're rarely going to have up. So, but with these two together, I would expect to have at least 5 links up at all times, which is going to be very good. So that's going to be a must. You can run the Dragon Ball Super Broly, so definitely run him. And he's going to be... The one thing that's kind of cool about this is the new Broly doesn't have a domain. So you have like no domain clash. So you just run this guy with his domain and just go crazy. I think Broly, Chile, and Lemo are still going to be like one of your best support options here as a movie boss. Turles, I'm going to get back to him in a minute because I do got to talk about him a little bit. You would think he's like an instant put on the team, but there's going to be a catch with him. But then Cell Max, dude. Cell Max, I mean, right there, like, I mean, you're getting Cell Max, 2 of the new Broly, and the Int Broly, and then the Super Broly, like super top tier. So the only thing you're looking at that maybe is like a little bit iffy right now is you've got this guy who's going to be dodge or die, but you get your orbs and you're good. And then Turles. Now, Turles is insane. But part of what makes him good is his 50% damage reduction. But you're gonna have to work around that a little bit, because you have to have 5 Terrifying Conqueror or Planetary Destruction. And you can't be a combo of both. It's got to be whichever one has the most. That's what's going to count. So if you use this specific team build, Turles does count himself, but then it's only Int Broly and then the new Broly that's coming out. So you're only going to have 3. Well, I guess the friend unit counts, right? So then you'd have 4. So actually, this isn't as bad as I thought, because I forgot to count the friend unit. So yes, you would have 4 there. So you'd be getting 40% damage reduction. So I think you're definitely fine here. So to me, this is the build I think I'm going to run right away. And I think this is going to be your best initial build with Broly as the lead. I think this is what you're going to want to run. Okay. Now let's talk about other options. And if something EZAs or like a new unit drops that I don't talk about, they're probably going to be good to slot on the team, right? So the 2 really big question marks that are going to be units that are probably you're going to want to slot on this team is the Part 2 Dokkan Fest LR, which should be an extreme unit, And there should be an extreme banner unit. I would hope that they put an extreme banner unit on there. So there could be an insane banner unit and a Dokkan Fest LR that could also slot onto here. So keep in mind for whichever characters you're missing, or maybe you want to take, you know, Broly, Chila, and Lemo off or something, then that's what you would slot in. But if we look here at other things currently in the game, that could be options, right? Let's start with Hirudegarn. So Hirudegarn is a true dodge or die character, but he is on planetary destruction. So if you slot Hirudegarn into my team build, say instead of Broly, Chila, and Lemo, you would have full 50% damage reduction on that Turles squad, which is great, right? So he is an option you can use, but he is very dodge or die. We have these two golden Friezas here, right? Both have their pros and both definitely have mega cons, right? This golden Frieza's pro is he's super good like turn 1, but as the fight goes on, he's going to get weaker defensively. And I actually think he's not going to work well on this team because you're already going to be having double of the new Broly, who essentially serves that role of being super good turn 1. And so this Frieza is just going to kind of float and be a nothing for you. So I'd say only run him if you're desperate or you just need another unit to make sure you're safe turn 1. This Frieza is also incredibly good, but he's geared a lot more towards super bosses. Now, depending on what your team build ends up looking like, on this team build, I mean, you're going to have this Broly and you're going to have Cell Max. They're going to qualify for super bosses and actually be pretty sweet. Actually, they didn't put you on super bosses, did they? They did. Okay, so Broly, Chila, and Lemo. But you don't really want to think about supporting Broly, Chila, and Lemo. They're going to be floating anyway. So really, it's AGL, Broly, and Cell Max. So if you want to focus on like having this guy there as like a floating unit that can maybe eat some hits, that'll support a couple of your units, I think this Golden Frieza is fine to put on the team. But it's not going to be as optimal because you're going to want something that supports the new Broly because he's going to be crazy after he transforms, right? Now, the other thing is I think it's like 99% guaranteed that I think one of these Brolys will get, well, that this guy would easy A, or that this guy would super easy A, or multiple of them. A couple of other units is the physical Dokkan Fest Broly could super easy A, but he's newer than this guy, so I don't know that I could see them both, so I think this is the guy that would get it. And then Bio Broly is another one. So let's say part 2, I think there's already a free-to-play Bio Broly that's almost like 100% going to Awaken and Easy A. I would be astonished if the free-to-play Bio Broly doesn't get something. And his kit indicates he could be a defensive unit against one enemy, so I think he's somebody to keep your eye out on. The new summonable unit could be Bio Broly. My prediction is I think that the part 2 Extreme LR is actually going to be the movie 10 Broly in some capacity because they built the part 1 Broly so well that he literally will always link with any Broly, right? The only thing he wouldn't link with is another base Broly, which there's not another base Broly you're running. And if you did get kind of clunky with that, he can instantly transform turn 1 and you immediately link. And he's going to link with any other legendary Super Saiyan Brolys. So if the part 2 LR was a standalone legendary Super Saiyan Broly or a Super Saiyan Broly that transforms into it, I think either of those would be fine. And the team wouldn't be too clashy because you're going to have that part 1 Broly in slot 1 to always link with them. And then you just make sure the other ones that would clash, you just keep them off rotation and from each other. And you're going to be good. So there's going to be a lot of options. But I think if you understand kind of the philosophy of this build here, if you start with something like this as a base, and then you kind of fill and plug as you go with what's coming out, you're good. Now, some other options I didn't talk about. Let me just go. I'm just going to go to movie bosses here. There are some other units I didn't talk about because I honestly don't think they're viable for the hardest content. But for newer players, if you just need to fill in, sure, you could throw stuff in, right? So I think 13 could be an option you could run. There's the physical Turles. I was actually kind of impressed with physical Turles' numbers, to be honest. I just know he will get crushed in like the hardest content, but I think physical Turles you could run, especially if you want to do a rotation with the STR Turles, and you would help get your requirements for the damage reduction. So I think there's going to be a lot of players that maybe have him that want to toss him in there. Otherwise, I mean, it does get really dicey, right? Like, obviously, a lot of players are going to have the coolers. I don't think either of them are good enough to run in like the hardest content, but once again, there's a lot of content out there that isn't the hardest. They could definitely be spot fillers for you. Physical cooler here just got new equips, could be a spot filler. But once again, I don't think he's going to be good enough. I mean, if you just want another Broly for the links, you can run the physical one. I'm super underwhelmed with him after ZZA. But once again, think of that as more of a filler slot, right? So there you go. I mean, physical Janemba is too old even to be a filler. Bojack could be a decent filler spot. But yeah, I think that's going to be pretty much it. So let me know what you guys all think. Let me know if you're all summoning. I think Broly's going to be super hype. Thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all on the next one.